Do you remember loading the gun? Do you remember pointing the gun?
I remember looking out and seeing like commando types sneaking up on the house and stuff, and I don't remember actually going in and getting the rifle and loading it up, but I remember.
I didn't, just be clear, I didn't kill anyone.
Okay.
I stabbed someone.
Who did you stab?
My younger brother, Christopher.
Christopher. How old's Christopher?
9, I think.
What did you stab him with?
My knife.
What's your knife look like?
It's green, kind of like camouflage on it.
It begins with the kind of silence that doesn't feel natural. Not the calm silence of peace, but the heavy, suffocating silence that comes after tragedy. Imagine a courtroom packed with people, the air thick with anticipation, fear, and a lingering sense of disbelief. In front of everyone, sitting in plain view, are not hardened criminals with weathered faces or long rap sheets. No, these are children, teenagers, boys and girls barely out of middle school. Yet the weight of what they've done makes them look decades older, or perhaps centuries darker. These aren't just troubled kids. They are names that would echo across America for years. Names that forced communities, parents, and the justice system to face one haunting question. How could children so young be capable of such violence? Tonight, we're peeling back the layers on 3 chilling stories: the Bever brothers, Michael Hernandez and Brenda Spencer. 3 different cases spanning different decades, but all bound by the same unsettling truth, that some of the most disturbing crimes in America weren't carried out by adults, but by teenagers. Let's begin with the Bever brothers. It was the summer of 2015 in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. A quiet suburban neighborhood where families knew each other. Lawns were neatly trimmed and people left their doors unlocked at night. Nothing about it suggested danger. Nothing hinted at the darkness growing inside the Bever household. On July 22nd, in the middle of the night, chaos erupted behind the walls of a seemingly ordinary home. Robert Bever, just 18 years old, and his younger brother Michael, only 16, launched a brutal, calculated attack on their own family. They weren't acting out of sudden rage. They weren't caught in the moment. This was premeditated, cold, and methodical, armed with knives and a plan they had been nurturing in secret. The brothers moved room by room. Their parents were among the first to be targeted, then their siblings. In total, 5 members of their family were murdered. 5 lives ended in the place they should have felt safest. The crime scene was so horrifying that seasoned investigators, people who had seen years of violence, described it as one of the most chilling massacres they had ever walked into. Police swarmed the neighborhood, and after a frantic search through the darkened streets and nearby woods, Robert and Michael Bever were captured. In court, they showed little remorse. Witnesses recall their faces, cold, detached, almost amused, when investigators asked why the truth was as chilling as the crime itself. The Bever brothers had been planning to kill their entire family, but that was only the beginning. Their real goal was far larger. They wanted to carry out a killing spree that would eclipse Columbine. They dreamed of infamy, of being remembered as legends of violence. And murdering their family was just the first step. The courtroom was filled with silence as the prosecutor described the brothers' chilling fantasies, supported by journals, computers, and conversations recovered by police. Robert, the older of the two, was sentenced to multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. Michael, a minor at the time, also received a life sentence. Their young ages shocked the nation, but their actions reminded everyone that evil doesn't come with an age limit. Next, let's go back more than a decade earlier to South Florida in 2004. The story of Michael Hernandez begins in a way that feels all too familiar. An ordinary school day. Michael was just 14 years old, a freshman at Southwood Middle School in Miami. He was quiet, polite to teachers, and on the surface seemed like any other student. But beneath that mask, something far darker was brewing. Michael wasn't just another kid. He was keeping a journal, and in it he wrote about fantasies of killing. He even made lists, step-by-step plans, names of targets, and cold notes about how he wanted to carry out the murders. On February 3, 2004, Michael's fantasy became reality. He convinced his best friend Jaime Guff to follow him into a school bathroom. Once inside, Michael launched a calculated attack. With chilling precision, he stabbed Jaime over 40 times. By the time it was over, Jaime lay lifeless on the cold tile floor of a middle school bathroom, a crime so shocking that it sent waves of fear through parents across the nation. When Michael was arrested, the horror only deepened. Police found his journal. In it, not only had he outlined the attack on Jaime, but he had also planned to kill other classmates and even his sister. To him, murder wasn't an accident. It wasn't a moment of anger. It was a project, a desire, a calling in court. Michael's demeanor was unnerving. There were no tears, no apologies, no signs of regret. Prosecutors argued that he fit the definition of a psychopath, someone completely devoid of empathy or remorse. During the trial, the parents of Jaime sat just feet away from the boy who had killed their son. And in one of the most chilling courtroom exchanges, Michael's own writings were read aloud, cold, detached, and methodical. They painted the picture of a child who saw life as nothing more than a game. The judge, recognizing the sheer brutality and premeditation of the crime, sentenced Michael Hernandez to life in prison without parole. His young age couldn't outweigh the horror of what he had done. Years later, in 2021, Michael Hernandez died unexpectedly in prison at the age of 31. But the legacy of his crime, what he did as a 14-year-old, still lingers as one of the darkest examples of how deeply twisted a child's mind can become. And then there's Brenda Spencer. Her story takes us back even further to January 29th, 1979, in San Diego, California. It was a Monday morning. Like any other children were gathering outside Grover Cleveland Elementary School, waiting for the doors to open. Teachers and staff were preparing for another day of classes. Across the street in a small house, 16-year-old Brenda Spencer sat by her window. She had a rifle, a gift she'd received for Christmas just weeks earlier. As the children gathered, Brenda raised the gun and began firing into the crowd. The scene quickly devolved into chaos. Bullets struck young children. The school's principal, Burton Ragg, and custodian, Mike Suker, were killed as they tried to protect the students. 9 others were injured before police arrived and surrounded Brenda's home. What followed was just as chilling as the attack itself. When reporters asked her why she had done it, Brenda's response became infamous. "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." A line so cold, so detached that it shocked the world, and has haunted the case ever since. Eventually, Brenda surrendered. In court, the evidence was overwhelming. She pled guilty to 2 counts of murder and assault with a deadly weapon. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Decades later, she remains incarcerated. Her parole repeatedly denied. The Brenda Spencer case forced America to look closely at teenage violence in a way it hadn't before. It was one of the earliest examples of a school shooting carried out by a minor. And while her crime happened more than 40 years ago, its echoes are still felt today every time we hear news of another school attack. 3 stories, 3 teenagers, the Bever brothers, Michael Hernandez and Brenda Spencer. Different times, different places, but all chilling reminders of one truth. Violence doesn't have an age. And sometimes the most terrifying faces in a courtroom aren't the hardened adults we expect, but the young ones we least imagine. As we sit with these stories, one question lingers: what drives a child to kill? Is it environment, mental illness, influence, or something far darker? Something innate we may never fully know. But the stories of the Bever brothers, Michael Hernandez and Brenda Spencer, force us to look closer at our schools, our communities, and even inside the walls of our own homes. Because behind the everyday masks of children and teenagers, there can sometimes be shadows too dark to see until it's far too late.